Tips from Trestle is brought to you by Wiseox AI, Advantage Trust GPO, the Dining with Dementia Workshop, and the 100% Leader. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Welcome into another episode of Tips from Trestle. This one was such a great conversation of many that I had while at the Eden Alternative International Conference earlier this year. I got the chance to sit down with Christy Norrish and Eric Anderson from the Sherbrooke Community Centre in Canada and really talk to them about how they approach resident engagement and really take their yes until no philosophy and the Eden Alternative learnings and really make for an exceptional resident experience. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Christy and Eric. Christy, Eric, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thanks for having us, Aaron.
I look forward to our conversation. We're here at the Eden Alternative International Conference and a lot of great speakers, a lot of great sessions. And so when I saw your guys' session on the agenda, I was like, okay, we need to have this conversation because resident experience, how we engage, how we do that, I think is so important in our communities. And the topic of your session, unimaginable experiences, dreaming big in recreation, really struck a chord. I was like, okay, let's talk about unimaginable experiences. Let's start first with this concept of the unimaginable moment. So both of you share maybe a specific resident experience at your community, the Sherbrooke Community Centre, that surprised you, maybe made you think, how did we do this?
You go first, Christy.
Okay. So the thing that stands out to me the most is we had a resident, he's a man who's in his 50s, living his life with multiple sclerosis, and he doesn't bear any weight. He's living his life in a wheelchair, and we had him go water skiing twice.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it didn't happen overnight. That took about 1.5 years to happen, but it happened. And that was just unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah, like tears running down my face.
Well, and I remember too, I was getting text messages from you and a couple of our colleagues like Lindsay and Allison, because it was like a big group effort, that one. They're all big group efforts, but that one was like in particular, and getting the videos and the photos, and he was water skiing, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. We have a river that runs through Saskatoon, but we didn't use that. We used like a big pond in the north part of Saskatoon. But yeah, that was an amazing day.
It was pretty amazing. And the water was very cold the first time we went.
Oh.
We had to cut some sound.
Imagine.
Yeah. It was
So, okay. So clearly that's like this like crazy over the top experience, but that's like that unimaginable moment like you're talking about. So when you think about this idea of dreaming big, when it comes to these types of experiences, obviously you said 1.5 years. There's constraints in trying to do these things, budget, staffing, all those sorts of things. When you really dig in, how do you get the stakeholders to get on board to an idea that maybe is ambitious, like this water skiing extravaganza?
At Sherbrooke, we've had a culture that the answer is yes until the answer is no. So anything that a resident asks for or wants to experience, we take every avenue, research every avenue, and look into everything we need to look into to make it happen until we absolutely can't make it happen. So 99 times out of 100, it happens.
Yeah,
it's an empowering culture to be a part of, because every one of the things that the Eden Alternative philosophy teaches us is that to form those meaningful relationships with residents. And I think we do a good job of that at Sherbrooke, and we get to know our residents well, and especially our recreation coordinators get to know our residents very well. And what are their passions? What are they passionate about? And then, yeah, once you know what they are interested in, what they like to do. Maybe like in the water skiing example, that resident, he loved to water ski in the past. And then it was like, how can we make that happen for him now that he's in a different situation in his life, but how can we still make that happen? But to be in a culture where, like Christy said, the answer is yes until it's no is pretty amazing. And I know it's not like that at every place, but keeps that momentum going. And even when you're going through, can we actually do this? There is that energy in you where it's like, if we can figure out a way, holy crap, we can actually do this, which is really great.
So obviously you guys have built this culture and it's been there for a while to be able to do this. For an operator, maybe it's really like the idea is overwhelming or they don't have that culture, but they want to get there. What would be one or two things that you would say, okay, think about it this way, or this thing you should look at differently to help get them closer to that yes until no mindset?
I think for me, I would say you look at yourself and what you like to do in your leisure time and some of the things that you're really interested in doing. And there's no barriers to do that. So why is someone living in long-term care not able to do those same things? So it's just that looking into how we can make it happen for people. And it's about the relationships and connectedness because that's the most important thing. Working with our elders, getting to know them so they trust you to share those parts of their lives with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. And I've seen firsthand Christy and her team, and all of our staff, but especially on the recreation side of things, forming those trusting relationships where residents will share aspects of their lives that they might not share right away, but you build up that trust and build up that relationship, that friendship, and you discover things about people, don't you? And that can create these opportunities. I think another thing too, as someone who's still relatively new to Sherbrooke, because I've been there for 9 years now, and I was just amazed when I first started, is just the culture that we have, but the strong leadership that we have as well. And to have a leadership team and to have neighborhood managers and our CEO have this attitude of it's a yes until it's a no. And that trickles down throughout the whole organization, I think. So for any listeners out there who are like, how can we do this? I think one of the things you need in your culture is strong leadership. And we certainly have that at a very high level. And then I think too, Christy, you're an excellent leader of our recreation team and you inspire them. And the fact that you've done the job too for so many years and you know what your colleagues have gone through or going through, I think, yeah, makes you a really great leader as well. And I think that leadership is really important.
Yeah, I can imagine. You guys use the Eden alternative as part of your philosophy. And a lot of the listeners may not be familiar with what that means and what that is. And just high level, give us like the core philosophy that's important that you use and how it changes your guys' approach to resident experience or recreation programming, as you guys call it, at your community.
Do you want to take that?
Oh no, this is right up your wheelhouse. This is
all right, Christy, give us the Eden alternative breakdown.
So the Eden alternative basically is to move away from the institutional model and make it like home. So we don't call it a facility, we call it home. It's a home that our elders live in. And we do everything to make it more like that. So there's kids, plants, animals around. The language we use is different, like facility and home.
Yeah.
Incontinence product rather than a pad or a diaper or something like that. So the language we use is very important for our elders that live there too. I had more ideas, but
that's a great start. And I think too, like alleviating those 3 plagues of loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, that is so crucial. And I think that everything that we do at Sherbrooke is filtered through that philosophy. And that's one of the many reasons why we love the philosophy is that when you look at those 3 plagues that are killing our seniors and all of our residents, because at Sherbrooke, we have younger residents all the way up to 105, 106 years old. It's all ages. But loneliness, helplessness, and boredom doesn't discriminate in terms of age. Those are real challenges. And I am so in awe of Christy and her team and the work that they do in terms of providing meaningful opportunities, whether they are big or whether they're smaller moments where you're one-on-one with a resident and you might be working on a puzzle or you might be watching a hockey game together or something like that, but having those one-on-one moments, they're meaningful to the resident and they're combating the loneliness, the helplessness, and the boredom that that residents can experience in long-term care.
I love that.
Yeah.
You made me think of this presentation I gave last week where literally last year, US World News did a senior living survey. They talked about moving into a community, how 24% reduction in that feeling of loneliness. That just happens from getting there. And so the things you're talking about, I got to think would mean they probably experience a much larger drop in that loneliness experiencing what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing to see the impact. And I also think too, referring back to the water skiing example, there's so much joy and anticipation, isn't there?
Oh, the talk of the town.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a small community that I grew up in
Yeah.
small town Saskatchewan, that it's like its own little community. We have residents there, and it's just like a little town.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
buzz happens when you make that experience happen.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember the first time we took a resident skiing. This is the winter kind of skiing, so down a hill. And we do have hills in Saskatchewan. They're not big hills,
No.
but there's some hills. And we took a resident skiing, and the whole community was just about staff, family members, fellow residents, and we were promoting it on our Facebook page leading up to the day. And then the day comes, and you're giving updates throughout the day on our Facebook page about how it's going at Table Mountain, which is where we went. And yeah, so there's, like Christy said, it's a very tight knit community, and there's, with these bigger recreation events, there's a lot of excitement and buzz that it creates, and I think that brings a lot of joy.
Yeah. I want to talk to you, Eric, a little bit about storytelling. You can set me up right there, just kind of tee off here. You've spent 2 decades as a storyteller. That's something you do. And I'm always jealous of people. I feel like I'm okay at it, but people who do it well, it's impressive. And so
Well, I think
You
you
do
just
too.
oh, thank you. But I think it's what I really admire you for what you're doing with this podcast, because you are telling these important stories. And I think if you have a passion for something, you just want to get that story out there, don't you? So,
yeah, absolutely. So when you think about being a storyteller, what components really make the story land with that broader community, the
Ooh,
broader
yes.
audience? Obviously, for me, it's going to be different than for someone else. So how do you look at that and
Yeah.
create that wow in the story?
Before I started at Sherbrooke, I worked as a journalist for CBC Radio, which would be like the equivalent of NPR in the States.
Yeah.
And when I worked on our morning show in Saskatchewan, our host, her name is Sheila Coles. She always had this great bar when we were pitching stories, which was someone was doing something for a reason. And if we didn't meet that bar, it probably wasn't going to go on the show. So that's how, when with the water skiing example, this resident wanted to go water skiing because it was a passion of his and he hadn't done it in a long time, and he wanted to reconnect with that passion. I filter everything through that way in terms of someone's doing something for a reason. And there were so many of those stories happening every day at Sherbrooke. The nice thing about these sort of bigger events that we do is that it forces people to do a second look and be like, oh, I thought long-term care, like I wouldn't think of that in terms of a connection to long-term care. I thought long-term care, you do a bingo on a Monday and they do Unity Club on Wednesday. It's like those stereotypical images that we have of long-term care. And yet when we do these sort of bigger events, whether it's water skiing, or one of the things we're going to talk about in our presentation is when one of our residents went to a Backstreet Boys concert and how that was a big community event. Yeah, like these, it's
And what he did to make that happen.
oh yes, it was like a whole community thing, but it forces people to take a second look and oh yeah, like life doesn't end when you move into long-term care. You can, there's still so much life to be had. The Eden philosophy is so wonderful for that. It just, with domains of well-being and the alleviating loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, it's just a great cultivator for life. And then you combine that with an amazing recreation team and an amazing recreation manager in Christy, and you form these relationships with residents. You can think big.
Yeah.
And from that storytelling perspective, on a basic level, it's someone's doing something for a reason. And then I think the hardest thing is keeping up with all the things that recreation does. There's so much, and there really is.
Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes I'll get text messages from the rec team, and they're like, "Hey, we're out at shit." I was like, "Oh my gosh, like that looks so cool." I didn't know we weren't going today, but there's spontaneity as well, and I think that's a great thing as well. Not everything has to be planned. And
Yeah.
if it's a nice day and it's like, let's go for a country drive and stop at a ice cream place in the middle of the prairies, and gosh, that would be, that's a lovely day.
Yeah, no, that sounds perfect. And so you mentioned the domains of well-being, and I want to make sure I ask each of you this question. There's 7 domains, and so sometimes one may get overlooked. When you think about them, which would be the one that you think in long-term setting, senior living, gets overlooked the most, and why should it not be overlooked? Why does that matter?
Christy, you go first.
I would say autonomy. So at Sherbrooke, we're person-directed care. So we always focus on what is best for that elder and what they choose. So there's always choices. It's not, oh, here's a red shirt to wear today. It's like, would you like the red shirt or the blue shirt today? So it's always about the person. And that's how we do our recreation programming. It's about the person and what they desire and what they want.
Yeah.
Oh, Christy,
So good.
can you talk about the rec forums? Because that sort of
Oh,
leads
yeah.
into that.
So twice a year, the recreation team goes off site and gets together and plans our big events for the next 6 months. So prior to that, we hold a recreation forum. So we invite residents, families, volunteers, our day program participants. We invite everybody to come and give us ideas. So it comes right from them. What we plan to do
Okay.
comes right from the residents.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's really cool to see because it's a bit like organized chaos of it. So you're kind of going through the months and then there's lots of ideas coming and they're great. And then it's usually you or Carrie that's typing everything down.
Yeah.
I still remember the first forum, one of our residents had an idea of he wanted to say thank you to our first responders in Saskatchewan. And so we ended up hosting a first responders barbecue, which was great because we will have EMS come to and paramedics come to Sherbrooke sometimes, as well as if there's burnt toast in a neighborhood, the firefighters will come. And so this resident was like, we should say thank you. And it was really great. And I think the emergency responders were very humbled by it. But again, that comes from a resident's idea and comes from the recreation forum.
Yeah. The thing I love about that is, so in my company, I work with a lot smaller operators, right? Maybe they're 80 or 100 residents. And this is an idea that they could literally just pluck and use because there's no limit to even a small house of 16 or 18 residents could just duplicate that and plan for the 6 months. That's such a really great idea. I love it. So do you have one?
I was thinking of growth.
Growth? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of one resident in particular. He actually moved out of Sherbrooke into more of a assisted living because he grew so much in terms of his recovery and stuff. And his name is Dave. Dave, if you're listening, hello. But I think of Dave, we did a lot of things. Our recreation did amazing things. We are also very fortunate to have physiotherapists and occupational therapists, as well as therapy assistants and occupational therapy assistants at Sherbrooke. And they all work together with Dave. And it's a pretty incredible story. But as Dave went from being in a wheelchair to standing on his own to walking again on his own and doing all the things, Sherbrooke pushed him in ways to grow. And once Dave started mastering walking down the hallway, what else does Dave want to do? He used to be a lifeguard. So let's get him in the pool and start swimming. He showed an interest in rock climbing. Okay, let's take him rock climbing. There was a rock climbing gym in Saskatoon. So that was one I think of Dave in terms of his growth and how our staff at Sherbrooke was able to tap into all of his passions and his interests. And when he had an idea, the answer was yes until it was no. But with Dave, it was usually always yes.
Yeah.
But he grew as an individual, and it was so much fun for our entire community to see him grow over the years.
I love that. And I think it's want to point out, these aren't independent living residents we're talking about. They're living.
Yeah.
And so they're out here doing things that people here in the States would equate to, that's a 70-year-old resident living in independent living kind of activity. No, you're working with residents that have all sorts of potential health concerns, and you're already reaching and doing amazing things.
Yeah.
So I wanted to clarify all that if people are listening to that.
Yes. No, I'm glad you did. Yeah, because Christy, that's one of the things you and your team have to balance is there's risk involved, isn't there?
Absolutely risk involved. But if someone falls when they're downhill skiing, falls out of the sit ski, boy, do they have a story to tell.
Exactly.
And it goes on and on, right?
Yeah. And it's risk reward too, right?
Yes,
And so
for
I
sure.
think that's so important because, again, the autonomy, growth, all joy, all those things are really important. So I want to take this to maybe some practical advice for resident engagement, activity directors, even maybe executive directors for communities. If they're listening and they're stuck, they're like, I love everything that Christy and Eric's talking about. These stories are amazing. I want to try and figure out how to do that in my own community. How can they move away from the we've always done it this way mindset? Maybe what's one first or two steps that they can take initially to really start pushing the envelope and really creating that unimaginable experience?
That's a good question. Christy?
On the spot.
Yeah.
Just give me one piece. You don't have to think too hard.
I think it's just really about thinking outside the box. Just because it's done the same way all the time, maybe there's a better way to do it or a better way to engage others in different things. Yes, we still do bingo, we still have music, we still do all the typical things that are done
Yeah.
in long-term care, but there's all these other things too. Like,
Yeah.
again, it kind of reverts back to yourself. Like, I'm in my 50s. This is what I like to do in my leisure time, but why don't we have the elders try that too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think another practical thing too, and Christy's very skilled at this, is forming community partnerships. I think do you think the Fireside Singers, would that apply to, do you want to tell that story? This is really
So,
cool.
We have
Okay.
a very prestigious choir in Saskatoon. They're called the Fireside Singers, and they perform a Christmas program every year and then a musical in the spring, usually every year. So they were looking for some rehearsal space because they used one of the rehearsal spaces in actually the building that they perform in, but it was like dark and dreary and it's maybe not in the best area of the city, and they practice at night kind of thing. So they approached us about using Sherbrooke as a rehearsal space.
Okay.
And at Sherbrooke, we don't charge rent for anything that the residents can be involved in.
Okay.
So they come into our building twice a week, and this happened in the fall. They came into our building twice a week, and one was a Sunday afternoon and one was a Tuesday evening, and they just did their rehearsals. And so residents were allowed to be a part of that or invited to come and join them
Oh,
and
wow.
watch and listen. And we had a choir director, a
Yeah.
resident, and a man who played the accordion, is living life with dementia right now. And he would talk to them so much about playing his accordion and performing in front of people. It's been an incredible partnership.
Wow.
It's been really great. The one resident that Christy was talking about, who was the choir conductor, I went one Tuesday night just to take some film or some photos and some videos and stuff. And she was off to the side and her hand was moving along with the same motions as the choir conductor was. And she was mouthing the words. And then sometimes she would just close her eyes and her hands would keep moving. In those moments, she wasn't there. She was off somewhere else, which was great. The music just took her.
Yeah. Is
And
she
then-
living with dementia?
I would say no.
I
No?
would say
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I was curious.
Yeah, but you know how music can just
Oh, yeah.
just take you to another place. And she was there, and then it was so neat afterwards. She had formed so many friendships with the choir members and of course the choir conductor, and they would talk about a little bit of shop afterwards. And then I thought this was nice, and yeah, gotta keep hitting those high notes. But it was so engaging for her, and so that is something that's maybe a practical thing, because I think for those residents that came every rehearsal, like that's an unimaginable experience, because I'm sure a part of them thought, I don't know if I'll ever get to be a part of a choir again in this way. And now through these rehearsals, it's been really neat. And then
Yeah.
we also have an intergenerational choir that does sing at Sherbrooke. It's called Timeless Voices, and it's a partnership with the University of Saskatchewan, and it's really great as well. Yeah, just I maybe looking for partnerships might be a way to
Yeah.
just get the gears going in terms of possibilities as
I
well.
love that, because one of the biggest complaints I hear from resident engagement professionals is there's no budget to do anything, right? There's only so many dollars that can go so far, and you got to be creative. And the idea of a partnership like that, for me, it's like a mind-blowing experience, and you get to do it twice a week. You've got this professional choir that's amazing, and then residents can come and be engaged, and that's just so cool. And it costs literally nothing for you guys to do that.
Another way that we do that with people who, with budget constraints, like we use the gifts of the people who work in the building,
Yeah.
or even a resident. We had a resident that actually started a knitting club. She
Wow.
was teaching staff to knit and other elders. And so it actually kept going after she passed away. So we had a resident that started that group.
It's like a legacy.
It is.
Yeah.
And so, and we have,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have
it is.
so such talented staff members in any way, like team members. And yeah, it's just a place where people can show and share their gifts.
Yeah.
Back to the choir, can I play you a little bit of what they sound like?
Yeah. Put up your microphone.
You can, yes, they were rehearsing.
Yeah.
around me.
They're doing it actually
No.
next weekend. So,
That's so
so
cool.
when we get back, I'm actually going with one of the recreation coordinators to take the residents who always go there to listen
To the
show.
performance.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah.
amazing partnership. Yeah.
As we wrap up here, Christy, I'm going to put you on the spot because Eric earlier said he's a newbie and he's been there 9 years, right? So you've been doing this 25 years plus, right? Obviously, this is your passion. This is what you were meant to do. But I got to think, having been engaged and being so connected, it can be draining, right? Residents pass, you see them not able to do water skiing or those kinds of things. So for those activity professionals that have a similar experience, what would you tell them? How do you recharge? How do you stay passionate about that kind of work when it does get emotionally heavy like that?
So there are days, like, I always think of it this way, like, there's never a good day. Like, there's never a good day. There's always good in every day there. You can be one of the residents you're really close with maybe has passed away, or I can just, out of my office, I'm spending time with the elders, and maybe I'm just sitting with an elder who just needs company, and maybe just sitting there and thinking, just holding their hand, not speaking, not conversing, but it's just the time that we spend with people is just so valuable. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how I recharge, is just we're doing the right thing. We're doing things for the people who live here. It's not their choice to live in long-term care, but we're making life the best it can be. I used to work in our veterans village there. So we had veterans from the Korean War and World War II in my time there. And one of our World War II Army veterans had passed away. And at his celebration of life, his son said, "My dad didn't come here to die. He came here to live." And that just makes it all worthwhile, right? Every minute of every day, things like that, is that they're living in long-term care and people generally don't move out. So it's like you just think of that every day. And it's
Such
he
a
came here
great
to
message.
live his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to add to, for Christy, when you were talking about the conversations that you have with residents and how they can recharge you, where Christy's office is, Erin, is on our main floor, and it's in a very high traffic area. There's lots going on right near the elevators. When Christy opens her door, there's literally a lineup of elders that want to just chat with her and see how she's doing. And Christy will ask them questions. That engagement, and it's not a chore for you. It comes so naturally to you. It comes so naturally to I would say all of our rec team and all of our staff. It's just something we do. But when you have great leaders like Christy setting the example and show it, and like everyone can see that, it's inspiring, I think, to everyone else. And I just wanted to make sure that listeners understood that.
No, I appreciate that.
Erin.
As we wrap up here, obviously, a bunch of the listeners aren't going to see your session. They're not going to hear the message directly. Hopefully, they got most of it here. But if they want to pick your brain, if they want to reach out and connect to you, what's the best way for them to learn about Sherbrooke and maybe chat with you guys individually if you have the time?
There's a few ways to get a hold of us. So our Facebook page, if you just look up Sherbrooke Community Centre on our Facebook page, it's a very active page. So we try and update it every day, if not every second day. But there's lots of things going on, big and small, and we're active on that. Our website, SherbrookeCommunityCentre.ca, has a lot of great information. We also have 2 podcasts out of Sherbrooke. So there's the Welcome to Sherbrooke podcast, which comes out once a month, and it takes listeners inside Sherbrooke. And so there's the Welcome to Sherbrooke podcast. And then we also have one with our grade 6 class that spends the entire school year at Sherbrooke. They're called iGen, which is short for Intergenerational Program. It's a partnership with Saskatoon Public School Division. It's called Welcome to iGen. So you can find those on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. But yeah, so there's lots of ways to get in touch. And then like listeners out there, if you really want to pick Christy's brain, which you should, send her an email, because you're a fountain of knowledge and you have all this amazing experience.
And we have a team, like we have an amazing team with many years of long-term care experience. So it is really, they're the easiest team to manage. I always think I have the easiest job in the building because I have an incredible team and we work together as a team to make decisions and things like that. So
guys, this is amazing. Just hearing the stories, like starting out with water skiing for somebody who can't walk. You just like started at the top. So thank you for taking the time away from the conference to do this. And thanks for being guests on Tips and Trestle.
Thank you
Thanks,
for the
Erin.
opportunity.
Thanks for
This
having
was lots
us.
of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.